Ahoy, mateys, and welcome to Volume 78 of the One Piece Virgin Eggheads Book Club podcast. The volume so nice, some read it twice. I am the captain of the measly crew, Mumkey D. Jones, joined as always by your Vice Captain, Eggy V. Rodriguez.
Aye, that's right, uno, dos, and forget the trace, because I don't even draw, you know what I'm saying? Either way, but get the buffalo, though, if you know, you know.
I have absolutely no idea what you're saying, but you mentioned Buffalo Trace, and we did find out that your beloved character, Senor Pink, his wife, and his Gimlet, they're both named after alcohols, according to Oda and the SBS. So is this even more literally Eggy than ever before?
It's true, I've been more of a sober mind than ever before, and probably, that probably matches why I've been dragging my feet around just as much, but at least I'm not on broken legs or taking a bullet/arrow to the knee. But I used to be a gladiator just like you. All right, slow down on the puns. All right.
I like that my hat comment was about alcohol while I'm wearing an actual weed hat in the form of Tally from South Park. So, very intoxicated episode so far. Eggy, do you have any hat thoughts, or should we jump into the top of mind?
I do have a hat thought, and what was it? Yes. The cover story of 778. Now, the whole cover story, it's pretty continuous here from what we covered last week. It's kind of following a probably predictable pattern, but something a little bit unusual and something that definitely tickles the fibers that are touching my bald scalp. The poneglyph of the ocean ruins, or it certainly appears to be. So along all these cat houses and dog houses getting kicked up and landing on the land, they make a specific mention in the caption here, oh yeah, we found this in the ruins. So I'm guessing that the way I take it, that has to be, they're talking about what's getting shot up out of the ocean. So poneglyphs are a beautiful and lovable thing. They're like little Easter eggs that I really always keep in my mind, more so in my hat. So that's why it's really feeling like, and when I saw that, I usually wear my straw hat, as some might tell, but I do have like a little bit of a safari style hat here. So when I saw homeboy Professor Man on 778 with his, stylish safari hat, I was like, you know what, I'm feeling it. I love all the mysteries, just like the poneglyphs bring to us. So I'm stealing his swag for today.
I actually do have a lot of commentary about the Jinbe cover story, especially what we get here as it comes to an end in this volume. But tell me more about this poneglyph, and because how many poneglyphs have we experienced in the story so far, and what have they actually had to say that this one has you excited to have a new one?
Well, I just have felt that, I guess the fact that we start off, right, the first one being in Alabastia, and this is like a grand thing that's being guarded by the king himself. It's a grand secret. There's talk of a legendary weapon, and Crocodile needs it translated. Okay, and that's already enough in and of itself. But then the fact that we have one in Skypiea, that means it's been sitting up there for 400 years. That means there's a lot of, this isn't something that is an ARG. It's not like a brand new marketing campaign for the latest Barra tea special. You know what I'm saying? This is really something that's got some history and some curiosity to it, because it's not something that everybody can read also. So I think really just the fact of that it was guarded by a king. Crocodile wanted that added some initial intrigue. The age to it, so anything that's old and also mysterious and unknown, that the age there does add something to me as well. And now here we're talking about it's coming up off the ocean floor, so this is really a trifecta for me. I'm not like into the UFOs and aliens and all that different type of stuff, or flat Earth, reptilians, whatever. But we're talking old, lost language, possible secrets. And ocean floor, that's everything that to me is really actually intriguing. So those are my favorite portions, I think, of the
Do you
poneglyph.
remember in Fishman Island, during the arc, there was also a poneglyph from Joy Boy that Robin read, and it was an apology to, I think, the mermaid princess of that time.
You know what? It had slipped my mind, actually, but now that you mention it, that's true also, yes.
Yeah, the idea of these ancient rocks with an ancient language that almost nobody can read, and also coinciding with this idea of the void century. Oh, there's a whole piece of history missing. I wonder if it's written on these fucking rocks, maybe, or at least maybe the rocks could give us some insight into what was going on 1,000 some odd years ago.
Mhm.
So maybe Jinbei can direct Robin to this to translate it one day.
And I guess one last thing I would say too is when we talk about like the lost century, that exists that we've been speaking of and have heard of in the story here. I feel like when we're talking about lost languages, lost messages on any ancient ruins inscribed in this way, I think it could possibly also, maybe it's not far back enough, but an idea that maybe something that's being hidden from us in this lost century, this could point out some of the things that we haven't been told, and that also would explain why Robin was found to be so dangerous and have such a reputation that she was being uh, chased after the way that she was, had the bounty from Young as she did, and et cetera, et cetera. So all that together paints an interesting picture, so that's why it's my hat.
If that's your hat, I can't even imagine what's going to supersede that with the eventual top of mind. But maybe I'll fuse mine into both while we're here on the Jinbei of it all, because if the Dressrosa arc is supposed to be the ultimate microcosm of the One Piece story and history and lore and all of it, just in one, right here in one fell swoop, I wonder if this little Jinbei adventure is also supposed to be a microcosm of something, because it's the story of Jinbei, fishman, first son of the sea, sets off on his own and ultimately solves this great kerfuffle and leads to harmony between mankind and nature and all the different races and species out there in this mini little story told in 26 fucking panels of picture. Like, it's a big grand misunderstanding where the sea kings are attacking the humans because they think that the humans stole their fucking doghouse, which is the ancient ruins that were underwater. But no, Wadatsume, this sea giant, was collecting all of the gifts to the sea god, and he thought he would do them a favor and give them the ruins. So it was all just a big misunderstanding. Jinbei solved it. And I wonder if this is not the story of Joy Boy himself, from how whenever he lived back in the past and he's friends with this mermaid princess. Was he a figure who was trying to unify everybody and perhaps create one piece for the world?
Woo!
Could it be? Because Jinbei, what did we just see him do? He created one piece,
Yeah.
amongst all these various things. And I have to imagine that's what this story is leading to in the grand scheme of things, right? So is Jinbei the modern day Joy Boy?
And I think also, even outside of the uh, cover story here, just knowing Jinbei's story and where he came from, his origins, and then where he ascended to, and kind of this final place that he was in, concluding at Fishman Island and moving forward prior to the cover story starting. I feel like he really is a figure that embodies all of the traits that would really make something like this really come together in a believable and successful way.
Yeah, he's powerful and he demands respect just with his presence as like this almost mafia boss guy who has a sweet soul and heart. I love Jinbei, and as a current honorary Straw Hat, I'd say he's not at the bottom of my list of Straw Hats. Yeah, he's definitely up there. I mean, Vivi, nobody's going to touch Vivi, of course, but. uh,
Without feeling the wrath of the cobra, that is. Woo!
what is your top of mind, Aggie? Unless you have more thoughts on the
Well,
Jinbei cover story.
I'm not gonna lie. My top of mind is really it's part of a greater interaction between Law and Doflamingo, but there's something that Doflamingo says here that I feel like really had red alert written all over it. Was really on some whole other stuff, and so it's to do with that Law. He attacks Doflamingo with the gamma knife. It says that it ruptures his internal organs, even without uh, actually cutting him on the outside. It's part of his, really the doctor of death, right? But Doflamingo, he replies to that later on that because of his string fruit, that in some kind of I feel like this is something I've seen elsewhere. It's not so unfamiliar with like maybe even just other enemies we've seen, but nothing quite like this, where the fibers of his organs that have been severed due to this gamma knife, yeah, they could just stitch themselves back up together in his body using string fruit. Uh,
It's
so
a
basically, I
real
mean,
Enaru shocks himself back to life moment where it's like, this guy is
yes,
so powerful. Even when you beat him, he's fine. Fuck you.
and I also take note of the fact that he says not quite the same thing as healing, but I have to wonder because, I mean, I guess maybe if you like, I wonder just how extensive the defeat of Doflamingo is going to need to be to fully crush him. Like, is he going to need to be like completely liquefied or something? Like you put, because if let's say if he got like thrown through the strings and he's all like sliced into pieces, could he string himself back together then, like some kind of replicant or something?
Well,
Um,
Eggy, that begs
I
the
mean, he has
question. The end of this volume, in my opinion, is very ambiguous as to if the fight is over or not. Because the very final panels, Luffy in Gear 4 fucking like triple slams him flying into the fucking mountain. And then the volume just ends. It was not even like a cliffhanger. Did you take that as a victory, or do you think Dofi's gonna string himself back together again?
I just took it as like a oh, the fight continues. I mean, we do see here, in the later end of the volume with Luffy's new power, he does seem to be immensely powerful. But I have said this, in prior volumes as well. I feel like Doflamingo, if Doflamingo just gets like punched through to death with a couple good punches by the time this arc is all said and done, it is going to be a letdown for me. I feel like his character, regardless of his power level, which is supposed to be enormous, but just how he carries himself and the kind of ruthlessness that he's carried himself with, I feel like he can't just take anything lying down just because he gets the wind knocked out of him or whatever. If he's getting his organs sliced apart inside of his body with like op fruit gamma knife ability, and that just goes. Let me think. Oh yeah, my heart's just piecing itself back together right now. Okay, I'm back to full power. Like that kind of, that's why like just the even if I'm reading into it is greater than what it is, I feel like just the confidence, the ruthlessness, the measurable power that he's been able to exhibit, and his, talking about how he can even awaken his devil fruit, which it's there, but even with the not to be too, all over the place right away, but just the premise of being able to like reconstruct your body as it's being like ripped apart. I mean, like that's like fuck, like the
Well,
very
so
demoralizing, I guess, to me. Like if I were his opponent, yeah.
so I got the hint of disappointment from that. So is Gear 4 in and of itself being revealed and used to fight Doflamingo not a step up enough for a satisfying defeat? Because as you may recall, Rob Lucci was also a fucking cool, awesome badass, and he also just got punched to death because Luffy used the gears. Is Gear
I feel
4 not
like,
good enough?
well, the Rob Lucci fight, it definitely, I feel like we're at similar levels of spectacle, in what presented, the Navy witnessing like this giant fist, just like coming down on Rob Lucci like that. Just the way that Luffy is just like toying with Doflamingo here and throwing him around like this rag doll. He's able to fly. He's doing all these crazy things. I don't want to get so like. So I'm not trying to take too much of what your top of mind might be.
No, we already did top
Like
of mind for me for GB. I want to break down your opinion on Gear 4 while we're here because I think you might be undermining its power here if you don't think it's satisfying enough to beat Dofi. Like he's combining hockey and all this pressurized rubber and like stretching his own fist back to make his it's like a Mega Man gun is his arm and he's shooting his fist out like the bullet. It's crazy.
Well, I think I'm not going to say, I think you might be onto something here. Um, and I think maybe it's just because, and we're talking about the Rob Lucci fight, to see him do these things with his body to basically inflate and harden certain parts of his body for an attack was, really something that was just awe inspiring at the time. I was like, jaw dropping. I've never seen anything like it. But this is not entirely what Gear 4 is about, of course, because yeah, like it's just, a grander evolution here from those pieces that we saw in his previous transformations. And I think probably you are right. I think I've just been very like I don't know. I sometimes I get my emotions into the work, and when I see just what Doflamingo has had, or what he has at least presented himself as, uh, I feel like maybe I might be perceiving him as larger than what he is, and in that way, I might be undermining what Luffy's bringing to the table here in this fight. But I mean, it is incredible what he has. I just don't know if, like I said, if that's probably why the string fruit stuck out to me as his top of mind, because I'm thinking like, what is Luffy going to need to do here if this is a man who could stitch himself back together like spontaneously as he's doing something else? Like just how extreme is the defeat going to need to be to draw that white flag, or to ensure the safety of all the citizens, to ensure a reversal here. I feel like this is a guy that in Doflamingo that it would be. Maybe it wouldn't be so disappointing if I do give it some thought here, but I just feel like, it's going to need to be a grand ending at the least.
Well, let's break it down. If this is Eggy's official prediction, the fight is not over. We did not conclude this volume with Doflamingo's defeat, and there's still yet to come. We got a lot in these last few chapters of Luffy saying, I can only stay in this form for so long. It's going to run out. I got to finish him right now. This is my last hit. If Dofi stands up from this and Luffy loses Gear 4, are we fucked? What do we do? Everybody's getting sliced up, and Luffy's going to be, I assume, in a state of need of repair.
Well, this could also be a. Who did we just? Didn't we just have somebody in the Coliseum that was? Maybe I'm crossing wires here, but wasn't there something along the lines of? I'm trying to think where my mind is going on this. But to stall for a victory, I feel like this could be, for instance, this could be like a Doflamingo is sufficiently injured. Maybe he realizes perhaps at this point that he is his officers have been rendered incapacitated or killed, and also we are perhaps just due to the fact that this fight between Luffy and Doflamingo with his Gear 4 and with, like I said, just the immense amount of area this is covering, I'm feeling very like DBZ kind of vibes, like you're punching somebody across the entire city in one hit kind of stuff. Maybe that we've had things similar to that, but I feel like this to me was embodying like that sort of massive energy that comes from those sorts of fights that I'm familiar with from those other properties. And I think despite we have some of the surviving officers and King Riku and people saying, hey, everybody just give them the space, this might be an opportunity perhaps where enough damage was done to then have a convening of the remaining Straw Hats who are here, the other officers and stuff. Then Doflamingo might be damaged enough, outnumbered, to then be subdued, I think, at that point. I just don't. What I don't see is just like a final knockout blow ending it all. I feel like there's got to be something greater here because the politics have been greater. The scale and the pressure of the previous 10 years and the grand reveal with the reveal of the birdcage. I feel like all that is greater than where it would just end in like a single physical situation. I feel like there's going to have to be more, but this might present the opportunity to where then we're going to have the convening of these other elements being able to bring about a more complete ending to this.
I wonder if the birdcage works the same as the toy hobby fruit, where once Dofi is actually defeated, if the birdcage just will vanish, and that'll be the sign that he's actually really done.
I think that would be good, and then also because yeah, if it could be like an incapacitation renders like he needs to be of a certain level of conscious mind to enact that and his other abilities to do with the string fruit. I think it makes sense first and foremost, but it would also then present that good opportunity for that to be handled. I mean, they could even hit him with a prism stone or something, around this time right now. Just catch him when he's at a low level of power and ability to then kind of start bringing those sorts of measures in.
And yeah, we have gotten a lot of emphasis on Zoro, especially saying, I want to delay the strings, try to push them back, but we haven't really seen him enact that yet. And it would be weird to hype that up and then he doesn't even need to do it because Doflamingo's defeated. So Eggy might be onto something. The story might not be building up to this is over quite yet. But where do we want to go next now that we've covered all of that a little bit?
Well, I think I'll go ahead and do a quick round of my One Piece cocktail of the week. And I just happened to notice, basically, I'm getting to the point where all these are like starting to request like very fantastic things like elderflower syrup and all that. So I was like, well, okay, this is Zoro three sword smash. All it needs is apple, lime, and rum. And I guess I forgot that whiskey was also in there, which I don't think I have any of. So this is
Oh
more of a
no.
two sword smash. But let's see if I can kind of feel the flavor profiles out here. I know what whiskey tastes like. I know what it should taste like with it, but I've got here apple, hard cider, some lime juice, and some rum. So let's see if, I mean, it sounds like it should be good already by itself, but, maybe it doesn't even need the whiskey. Maybe I'd like it this way even better anyway.
The Zoro double sword dive going down Eggy's throat.
Mm. Well,
It's got some
it is,
stank on it, Tubes.
yeah. Um,
Even
so
without all that extra whiskey?
just in the way that I can, flush my mind, as we talked about in the last volume, I could also, with the extensive amount I've drank alcohol in my life, I could, understand how a certain flavor profile would fit with whiskey. And this would definitely benefit from the whiskey. As it stands right now, it's good. It's just very like the apple and lime. It's very light and fruity and citrus. And in the same way, I like a whiskey lemonade where you have like this lightness and it kind of balances it out and meters it with that smoky, um, oaky, woody sort of rum. I can see where this could benefit, but also, yeah, if you're not somebody who needs that bitter counterpart, this is very light and fruity and airy, and would be very refreshing. So I feel it's very similar in line in this form. The two sword smash is very similar to like the Nami's cocktail, but I mean, hey, especially if you're doing the apple component with hard cider and some whiskey and some rum, you know what? Call that long bladed iced tea, as far as I'm concerned. So I think this one, I'm gonna put it above Nami's, because I don't know, that one's just very sweet. So I forget it's Frankie. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll put this one above Chopper too, because I know with the whiskey, I think I'd like that better personally. So Frankie, Zoro, Chopper, Nami. That is the new ranking of One Piece cocktails, and we might have a grand finale next week. Well, I should get one with let's see, what's Luffy's supposed to be? It's supposed
There's
to
like
be
8 or 9 crew members, dude. What do you mean grand finale? What, you giving up? I thought you were doing this until the
no.
end of the series. A new drink every week. We start going through all
Uh,
the supporting characters, and because you still
oh,
have not done my
well,
suggestion of Sanji's all blue, which is a fishbowl
Blue
with all
Curacao.
blue curacao or whatever it's called, and then you pour in sardines and shrimp and like nasty seafood, and you
All right.
drink
You
it.
know what? I'm hearing you out, and I know all the audience members are feeling the same. I just have to, the training wheels of Chat GPT have got me rolling. Now it's time for my expertise in this field to come into play and start. We can do the all blue, of course, also, because, yeah, it's out there.
Yeah, we should be
But
inventing drinks based on the characters, based on our knowledge of beverage.
like Luffy, why his Chat GPT cocktail doesn't even have any gum involved. It should be bubble gum should be in there for the gum.
Yeah.
Bananas for monkey. So I think you know what the training wheels are off. From now on, it's all our own ingenuity. I just got the ball rolling and got the ice balls rolling inside my cocktail. Moving
And we've been
forward,
to barbecue places that garnish drinks with a piece of burnt end, and Luffy loves meat, so you should definitely have some meat in the drink, or at
I
least
just got
garnish
some
on it.
ribeye steaks for half off on the clearance rack. So let me save a little piece for a special situation. That's right.
Should we go to some questions for Virgin from the Discord channel, or should we go back to the volume?
No, you know the virgin questions. It sounds fine.
Okay, Duskull wants to know, what are some characters that you wish had joined the crew but didn't? And we could talk about this as its own podcast, to be honest. This could last 2 hours. We could go arc by arc, and I could tell you my most requested character. Gaimon, #1. He should have been there.
Well, maybe perhaps it wouldn't be right, but I don't think they have any such thing as schooling. I don't see why the kids from Syrup Village couldn't have come along. Maybe it wasn't good timing for them then, but I think maybe they could have.
Nah, we don't need Carrot and Pepper, and I'm sure a much better Carrot will join the crew later. Wink, wink.
Yeah, I'm saying is Usopp. You know what? I mean, he did fine without a father, but these other kids, they might need some real structure in their life, a real captain hero. But anyways, that's fair enough. Yeah, it's probably not for the best if they had joined.
What if Chimney, instead of staying with Grandma and working on the railroad, maybe she could be like the lookout for the crew up in the lookout deck, I guess they call it, the crow's nest.
Maybe Chow Chow back in Orange Town. I mean,
yeah, they need a real pet because Chopper's too human now. Tanjit, did he really need to go back to his family who abandoned him, left him for dead because he's on fucking stilts? I would never forgive them. I'd rather join a pirate crew.
Yeah, we saw in the time skip he met back up and everything like that. But I mean, yeah, if I took my grandma out and put her like 300 feet in the air and then just walked away for 5 years. If nobody ever shows up, I mean, I'm not, or my grandfather for that matter, but my grandfather survived a tree falling on his head in his 70s. So,
wow.
So he might, I think I would trust him to be able to do it, but, either way.
What about Lashes the camel, who got them through the desert and loves women and hates men? Like, don't we need that balance on the crew? Some reverse sexism? All right, maybe Sanji does that enough.
Well, as much as I've been watching the new season of 1,000-Pound Sisters, I've been very camel pilled lately because
why?
one sister got attacked by a camel like in the off season.
Wait, did she try to sit on it?
No, they were like going on a safari, and the camel like was up at the window and like went into the window and bit her. And there was like a video. She's like, "I'm going to beat my hand."
For the fans at home, that was not me censoring the cursing. Discord just happened to know when he was saying fuck.
The AI is getting smarter every day. It's been for the first 4 hours of the first 4 episodes here. They still, she got traumatized. The one fat sister works for an animal shelter now because she's not as fat. And she refuses to go. The other sister's not going to the animal shelter because she's afraid a camel's going to be there to attack her. And it's been an actual point of conflict. I think probably.
Does this animal shelter have camels? No.
So she said she got PTSD, so like she just can't go anywhere that there might be too many animals because she could be attacked.
Tragic. I can't go into an animal shelter without tearing up and seeing all those sad animals that I can't take home. I wish I could.
That's right. And also to the, I'm just speaking of my own influences. I'm bringing my own flavor to this, dissection of the material here. I got back into playing World of Warcraft again recently for the new 20th anniversary or whatever thing coming out. And, there's something in the game called mounts where you have like your horses or your whatever that you can ride around on in the world to help you get places faster. Maybe Lashes might have been a little too large, but I mean, especially, now with the Thousand Sunny and having all this extra room, I'm sure they could get a stable up in that thing somewhere for a mount to help them ride around. But I don't know, maybe if Luffy could fly now in Gear 4, maybe not as necessary, but that is also a lot of energy for him to consume just to move. So just an idea, why not have the sea and the land under control?
We should have talked more about Gear 4 giving Luffy flight, but we'll get back to that. Another character, Marguerite, was that her name? The hot chick in Amazon Lily who Luffy should actually have as his waifu instead of Boa Hancock. She can shoot arrows that are infused with armament hockey, so then it like destroys a fucking boulder. Let's get her on the crew and teach that shit to Usopp ASAP. Because if you could shoot hockey at some, you could hit a devil fruit user. You could hit Caesar who's trying to turn into smoke if this shit's infused with hockey, I assume. So
Exactly.
let's get her on the crew. Anybody from Fishman Island or Punk Hazard, Aggie, that should have joined the crew.
Those children probably need that therapy and medical treatments. So probably, as big of fans as they are, it is what it is.
The
Fishman
mermaid with
Island.
the freckles on her face, she can just hang out on the ship like in a tank. She doesn't have to go on the adventures.
You see, when in our fishing boats that us Midwesterners have, they have this tank to the side that fills in with like the seawater where you can keep your fish that you catch, in case you make sure you're not going over or whatever. Like if you have to throw one back, whatever the case might be, keep them from dying. At least then when you bring them home, they'll be nice and fresh to fry up. So why not have some? Once again, the Thousand Sunny is quite the engineering marvel. I think that it's a lot more capable for some of these things, like a mount table and a mermaid chamber. And hey, it need a little extra money. You go back to Sabaody. Hey, you know what?
Sell her and then kidnap her back and just keep an endless loop with all the auction houses.
That's literally a Silver Israeli money glitch.
yeah, he sold himself into slavery and then just broke out.
So tried and true, proven. You know what? I mean, hey, it is what they got. All these mermaids down there. They ain't gonna miss one, right?
So I think
We'll
our
take care
version
of
of the crew is objectively better with Gaimon and a nameless mermaid. So Oda, take some notes, fix the story, go back in time if need be. I know the flow of time only goes one direction, but figure it out. How do you feel about Gear 4 allowing Luffy to fly because he's like pumping his feet like a fucking jet engine or something?
I mean, considering that Gum Gum Balloon has been so established for so long and has these qualities of my scientific words are not really coming to me so good, but you know how hot air balloons go up, they got that inflation and the heat or whatever. I think that
he's also done Gum Gum UFO a few times in Skypiea and in Punk Hazard. He did it, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Another unidentified flying object, literally. So that's literally what he's doing here. Because people are like, "What is that thing that's flying around?" Huh?
Yeah, and with his widened torso, I think even if it's not explicitly stated, which perhaps it is at some point, but I think that everything's coming together. I think it makes sense now. Maybe the propulsion aspect, that's maybe the newer part of it for me to wrap my head around. But with how it's presented in the story here, I didn't feel like it was at all impossible by any means. I think that it seems like it's because he like this thing that he's doing, because it's how he charges up these more powerful punches as well. It's almost like he's retracting himself into like this circular chamber of like compression or something, maybe. So if he's able to do that, I guess it's just that the pressure is so great.
And I think another difference, and I might be wrong, somebody correct me, but Gear 3, when he goes giant mode, I think he's biting into his bone and inflating the bone like a balloon. But here he was doing the same thing with his muscles and blowing his muscles up with hot air. So he can't even stand still. He's like constantly bouncing around. I don't remember if I've ever clicked on this or if we ever had it randomized, but on One Piece Burning Blood, Gear 4 is its own character that you could just be in that mode forever. And it is extremely overpowered, and you could just hit buttons that just blast the guy away over and over again. It's insane.
Okay, Google, set reminder for always select Luffy Gear 4 in Burning Blood.
Well, you don't even need a reminder, Eggy. Let's do a mirror match of it. Like, because you can choose, 9 characters at a time. I wonder if we can just do 9 Gear 4 Luffys. And then that movie does here when he throws the python and like he throws a punch and it like changes direction in midair. It's like break the laws of physics. You can also do that in the game, which is like an undodgeable. Just if I hit the circle button, you get hit no matter what.
2v2s of Rob Lucci and Luffy Gear 4 with just repeatedly undodgeable attacks that go across the entire map, even at maximum distance. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think it even plays like a little cutscene of like go get him, Snake or Cobra. And the arm goes crazy. So that'll look forward to that next time we play that game on stream or whatever the hell we did last time.
That's right.
Uh, Pell, you might remember Pell. He had like the bird fruit or some stupid fruit back in Alabasta, and he told us evidently only like 5 devil fruits give you the power of flight. Was he including the gum gum fruit?
I feel like he was not, because in the same way that we have been continuously, it seems like I feel like Doflamingo has been the most extensive. We did get a taste of it back with Crocodile and Alabasta, this sort of sharpening and elevating the existing and inherent devil fruit powers that exist. But I feel like Doflamingo has been the greatest example of it that we've had in the story so far. And I would have to believe also Luffy with just the level of training that he's at, his bounty level, what he's been able to accomplish in the story. I feel like he has to be breaking new and unfamiliar ground with the gum gum fruit that would I mean honestly, I mean I don't think that they would say that the string fruit is necessarily a flight providing fruit, but he's able to string along these clouds using the ability that
Exactly.
he's been able to manifest. So I think in that same way, this is a level of optimization and training that no gum gum fruit history has ever cataloged before, and I think this would bring this into a new classification that would then include it in the flight fruits.
I think Oda's message here is the greatest superpower of all is creativity because Dofi is doing things with a string fruit most people would never imagine. Sewing your limbs back together or your organs together, fucking Spider Man flying on clouds, controlling people like puppets, creating cages that slice entire islands to bits. Like you could get any of these powers, and if you just creatively utilize them, you could almost have limitless possibilities. It would seem if Luffy, having a rubber body, can transform his being into like this weird sumo guy who's bouncing around and flying. When Dofi talks about awakenings, what is your impression of what a devil fruit awakening allows you to do, or what that is? Because he
Well,
then shows it off, and I think I suspect Crocodile also had an awakened devil fruit just based on what we see here.
I guess, just the initial premise of its existence, my awakenings that I've had before, I think, uh, I can't remember which game it was that I was playing, but I had some game that I played where an awakening of an item was that it was essentially, it had reached its natural maximum limit of enhancement, and then by reaching this maximum level of enhancement, it had been able to, basically then ascend to like a whole new form almost. And so that was when I was thinking of immediately just off the premise of its existence. But um,
So when Dofi introduces the concept, he then transforms the floor beneath Luffy and the buildings around him into strings. So no longer is it just Dofi and his body is affected by the string fruit, but now he can make the environment become strings as well. Just like how Crocodile, I mean, I assume this is what he was doing, unless he's just really petrifying it and absorbing all the moisture to death. But I feel like he was turning some things into sand from time to time, maybe not.
yeah, I feel like it's tough with his with Crocodile's Devil Fruit because it's very easily it could be going either way. But yeah, so yeah, he announces it after he says the awakening that powers can awaken and affect objects aside from the wielder.
Right.
Um, And yeah, I feel like this crocodile could be construed that way. And in a way, kind of also that made me think of like, feeding devil fruits to inanimate objects as well. So, but I think this kind of exists in a category of its own that maybe we haven't seen before because just the idea, other than crocodile, like a lot of other applicable fruits could, if they were able to awaken like this, they could make things very, very strange. Like if Bellamy, we'll talk about him here, but like with like spring fruit, if you could have like buildings like launching into space, or have them inflating, shrinking, gumming around. So it makes me wonder then also, yeah, where we might see such an application in the future of this awakening and who might be possibly strong enough to wield it. Is it going to be in the future that this would be a frequent thing that we'd see by Devil Fruit users? It just seems like it has particular applications and it wouldn't be like so consistent, so constant. But I
Well,
probably said that many, many volumes ago about devil fruits in general, so I could be wrong.
following the train of logic of how the awakening is applied, what would you imagine Luffy's awakening would do?
I guess probably he could gum fruit. I don't know. I guess since we see buildings and ground used here with Doflamingo's awakening, maybe like, oh my god, they're gonna attack this castle. Wait, awakening on the castle, and then they go and like shoot it with a cannonball and just bounces off.
So he could turn the
I mean,
environment into rubber. Yeah, that'd be cool as hell.
that's what I'm expecting now. Doflamingo, he set the bar. I'm ready to see that happen in the future. I mean, obviously, Luffy's got to get stronger than the future Doflamingo, in the future, right? So,
He might get stronger than him in this arc, hopefully.
right?
And he might be stronger than him already. Let's see. Is there another good question I should tackle that anybody can ask by becoming a member here on YouTube for $3 a month? The Monkey D Jones. Best Toasty wants to know if you'd been part of the crew since the start, which arc do you think you would have survived until? So, do you think you would have died by now?
Uh, by now, I feel like considering the fact that I've been out here just at my age and in my general physical condition, when I look at Punk Hazard, I look when I go outside and it's just only like 10 degrees below zero, and my mustache freezes, and I start turning pink, and I have to go home and steam up my bathroom to bring myself back to life. Uh, and also, I don't know, like I probably would have, just being honest, like the whole new world, just even going into Punk Hazard, like from the Fishman Island coming up. I think I don't know.
You're not going to
I think it would have
outrun the
freaked me
gas
out.
they
I
spent
might have
two
had a heart
volumes
attack.
outrunning.
I think there's probably numerous, maybe like launching into Skypiea. As much as I would have liked to go there, I think I would have probably shit myself and had a heart attack and died doing that. Um, I think possibly everything up to that point. Or maybe like with the Arlong Pirates, that was pretty freaky too. I think if I saw like an 8 foot tall fish man, I probably would shit myself and die.
Yeah, my answer
Uh,
was going to be like, yeah, I have to put myself in the Usopp position on the crew just as the weak normal human. And Usopp on Arlong Park, he survived something that would have killed me. Like that, was it Shu who's shooting water bullets at him that could destroy entire forests in one go? I don't have Usopp's cartoon durability, so I'm probably dead right there.
yeah, if I received his skull cracking attack, I probably wasn't going to bounce back from that one.
Yes.
And when we
If
got to the
Mr.
Balrog
Four sprang a bat into Eggy's head.
I feel like I could have made it to the Balrog for sure, and then I probably wouldn't have wanted to leave because I'm like, yo, this kicks ass. Like, there's got to be so many cool people coming through every day. I know they're pirates and they're just cartoonishly like assholes that get beat up all the time for being jerks, but I don't know.
Well,
I
that is a
think
question, Eggy. Poopy doopy. Out of all the islands, where would you want to live? You're saying you'd want to be a chef on the Burati.
I think it would be good for my sea legs. I think if I wanted to do more in the future, this would be a good stop. I think it's got a good brotherhood kind of energy to it with the chefs and under Zeph there. I feel like it'd be good to get you right. I think it's a good, healthy environment. I like food. You're not going hungry. You know, you get to meet new people if you want to network. You can find some interesting people to run into, talk to. Yeah, I think as it stands, and you know, shout out to all the different islands, but otherwise, I don't want to sound too much like a city slicker, but like Log Town, you know, it seems like it kind of have a good ecosystem going on there compared to maybe some other places.
Lots
Not
of
too
pirates going through
rambunctious.
there, though.
Yeah, well, they'd be coming through the Barati too, and if they wanted to overtake the Barati, that'd be more for me to deal with maybe than what Logtown would have to offer for protection. But you know what? I'll hedge my bets. I'll say I'd like to stay on the Barati. I like my cuisine and my culinary brotherhood.
I
That's right.
would like to be a citizen of Dressrosa. You get a cool toy slave. My dad who annoyed me, I don't even remember him, and he's gone. Like, who knows what happened to him? But I got this cool toy slave now. There's a coliseum where I could just go watch people get brutalized and killed as entertainment, and I would love that. Roman Coliseum days, I would have loved to be one of those peasants desperate for bread and circuses and all that. So,
Well, you
is
know,
the last 10 years on Dressrosa not the ultimate answer so far?
yeah, I can get down with that. Yeah, I think that perhaps for all its benefits, you know, Dressrosa would still have a culinary scene if I wanted to be a kitchen man. And yeah, you know, the Colosseum is hard to pass up. It's something that I myself, as a man who has lived in a time of no Colosseums, any series which has Coliseum involvement, that is a point in its favor typically for me to be able to enjoy. So I think I've got to give all Coliseum esque arrangements. I got to give them the W chat.
And the whimsy of having a toy slave, I think, is really underrated. Who wouldn't love it if everybody had a toy slave who desperately was attached to us and we don't have any idea why? Who could say why these toys are so loyal? Where do you want to go next in the volume, Maggie?
um, well, you know, it's I guess I made an allusion that's with an A to it earlier. But I used to be the greatest undefeated gladiator of all time, just like you, until I took an arrow to the knee.
Wait, did he actually say that word for word? I don't
Oh
remember
no!
reading arrow to the knee.
Hey, listen, you're as old enough I mean,
Yeah, I
you
know
are.
Skyrim, but I
Yeah,
don't remember
yeah.
this being in the volume.
No, I'm fairly certain that Kiros gets shot in the leg here,
Oh
which is really
no.
unfair considering that he's only got one leg to begin with. But
Yeah.
that's of course no. Yeah, that was not that I would ever get two volumes mixed up or anything like that. But I thought I was under the impression, I believe that that might be happening here.
It probably did. What I remember from this is the spiked metal balls. It's like a caltrop hell from the heavens falling down on
Mm.
Kiros, and he's the ultimate badass. He's dodging them with his sword, but then it gets to the point where he's just taking them. He's getting brutalized by them. But the motivation to something specific about protecting Rebecca motivates him to just take them on the chin and obliterate Diamante. So badass moments from both Kiros and Robin, who it's revealed Robin was also just taking blows to the back and taking it, embracing it or whatever, enduring through it for the sake of protecting Rebecca.
Now I recall Diamante begins to drop these horrible jacks, or is that what the jacks were? I remember they would talk about jacks when I was a kid, but that must have been like an '80s thing, like jacks and pogs. I wasn't around to play
Mm-hmm.
those. Like
Yeah, I
you
think they
drop the
just
ball
called
and you
it.
pick up the
They
spikes.
just said spiked metal balls. It was a
Mm,
strange translation here. I would have called them,
yeah,
yeah, like caltrops or something. I don't know.
that is a good word to use. So it's that he's able to just immediately deflect all of them, literally like at raindrop speed. His swordsmanship is still so incredible that he can just like swing his sword and immediately just makes all of them get knocked aside.
You could walk through the rain
Diamante,
and not get wet.
yeah, Diamante, just the most absolute, just total piece of garbage, seethe-inducing thing, as he's perfectly doing this dance with his blade to deflect literal raindrop speed metal balls. And then he just shoots him in the leg to make him fall and start getting, just drowned in these horrible spikes. But Kiros is the undefeated man for a reason, so even without dodging, he doesn't give a fuck. He just walks through and is getting sliced up because as much as he's getting sliced, well, Diamante gets sliced a lot more because Kiros is drawing from a lot of years of pain. I think there's certainly something to consider here, where you have somebody who's got this, really seems to be on top of the world. They have all of the visible status and all of the visible strength and might and backing. But do not underestimate a man who has had to take a whole lot of BS for a whole lot of years. He has nothing left to lose. He's got everything on the line. What might maybe make you think twice is something that will not even enter his mind to consider because he's highly focused, highly enraged, and Diamante gets to be known about that with
And
the
the
half moon Truno Bastardo,
Yeah, I've never
which
seen Oda flip or split the dialogue box in half with like the sword cutting through the dialogue box. That was an interesting, especially when it has to do with the moon. I wonder if we'll ever see something like that again. But the poetic part of his defeat is that we keep getting battered over and over again with Diamante shot and killed your mother. He killed Rebecca's mother. He killed Kiros' wife. Scarlet, I believe, was her name, but maybe I think so. But the finishing blow that actually knocks him out is when he falls back. He hits his head on Scarlet's grave. And it's been like 4 or 5 times I've been through this, and I just fucking put that together. Like, oh yeah, okay, that was pretty obvious. How'd I miss that? So
bravo, Oda, bravo.
that's why they kept emphasizing that, is because he's going to hit his head on the grave to be knocked out. Was it worth all the decade of torment? Maybe not, but I'm
Well,
glad he got bonked on the head.
I think that I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit hasty here, but just for where things rest in my mind, and Pika's pretty grand also, but maybe at least the defeat of Diamante is like the at least as weighted and satisfying as Pika, but like compared to the other officers, I feel like those two are definitely the. I guess that's why they got saved, more towards the end of the officer fighting here. But yeah, it's very satisfying for sure. Very vindicating.
I like Kiros' speech about how he's taking all these caltrops, and he says that pain is what makes him human, and all the emotional pain and turmoil he felt while a toy is what was keeping him human that whole time. So this is physical pain is just an extension of the horrible emotional pain he's always been in anyway, and that's why he could fight through this to make the pain ultimately fucking end. Absolute Chad. Kiros, I feel like the One Piece fans, surely they love him while they have him, but I feel like he's been forgotten with many other Chad-like characters popping up in the future of the story to maybe block him out
Yeah.
of people's memories. He was very low in the character popularity poll, which was shocking.
And I mean, it's nothing to scoff at with 3,000 fights and no losses. I mean, that's just like at an unfathomable level of greatness.
I don't even like him for that. I like him for just all the who he is as a character and all the shit he's gone through.
That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. At the very beginning, I don't know why I wrote this as a note, but like the opening panels of the volume, the gorilla that was like a toy monkey and now he's like a rampaging gorilla, he has been caught by the Marines and he's tied up and has a big bonk on his head and a sad look on his face. So I'm glad we got an update to the gorilla. Like, Oda, why? Like literal background nonsense gets its own little mini arcs if you just pay attention to every panel. For no reason. He's just filling up space and it's cute.
Well, I mean, I guess if you had to say, am I going to fill this background with a bunch of like small human-looking figures, or am I going to have a gorilla and some kind of, I guess, crocodile? I don't know what the difference between a crocodile and an alligator is, but that's next to the gorilla with a chain around his snout. Like really sensible animal. Capture.
And now the birdcage is coming to slice them up and they're all tied up and can't escape. It's tragic. Luffy better save this gorilla with the Kong gun. He literally called it Kong gun. Got blasted like King Kong, Eggy.
Not even relative to the primate eccentricities that fulfill your legacy as much as the egg related things fulfill mine. But there's something I don't know about, like a reversion to a more primal state here that has the relegation with denoting a more strength, heavy, strong, solid, animalistic kind of attack is what Luffy's presenting here. And something about that always really just sits well with me, because I just feel like he's really just chimping out. He's ready to do whatever it takes to handle business here. As the final minutes are ticking down, it's like your higher conscience and higher consciousness is put on hold. It's paused to really just awaken the sort of bestial offense that is necessary. The adrenaline coming through, the new levels of power being reached.
That's why it's so tragic that I didn't get into Dragon Ball as a child, because the fact that they turned into monkeys, I probably would have lost my shit. So a big blind spot for me that I finally made up for a few decades later.
I can remember as a child just feeling like on my tailbone and like wondering if I was ever going to grow a monkey tail. I'd go to bed at night and I'd dream about growing a tail. They used to have this magazine called Weekly World News. They might have heard they had the Bat Boy or whatever they invented back in like the 90s. You might have seen a picture of it in some place somewhere. They were like the original like deep fake news sensationalist tabloid saying like Bigfoot was running for president and shit like that. I thought it was all real because how the fuck would I know? I was like an 8-year-old kid.
They can't publish this if it's made up.
They had an article one time.
Rules.
Yeah, I don't know if it was 1998, 99, whatever, but they had this article too. It was all happened to be coincidentally around the same time. And it was like, man, due to a strange moon cycle, man is now reawakening his monkey genes. And they had like this, there was pictures, obviously, like they were shot in a studio somewhere with like makeup and stuff. But he had a tail coming out from over his butt cheeks, and I was like, "Holy fuck, it's literally real!" And I'd just rub like over my ass crack and be like, "Oh fuck, where's my tail? I think I'm growing one." I would like go, I'd be at school doing, the mile run or whatever, and I'd be like tired, and I'd be like, "Oh fuck, I think it's awakening my tail. I can feel there's a bump back there. Something's happening."
Well, if it has to do with like astrology and moon cycles, maybe you have to expose your bare ass to the outdoors so that you can get all the pheromones or whatever to make your tail grow.
I was a big fan of mooning back then. It was, it was like, because we had the middle finger. It just didn't feel strong enough. And,
you got to show people your ass.
I was a kid. It's not like I was going to jail for it, for like being indecent or whatever. So yeah, I was, I got my moonings in. It was a good time.
Man, pedophiles must have loved Eggy. I'm going to go piss off Eggy. He'll show me his sweet little ass. Hey, speaking of Dressrosa potentially being a microcosm of One Piece, and what will the One Piece world look like at the end of the story if we're going to take down this corrupt world government? What does a true world of peace look like? We get some suggestions here. Kiros says, in all the world, the Riku dynasty is the only royal line that understands the true meaning of peace. Now, I don't know how Kiros, who has only spent his life in Dressrosa, usually as a vagrant and a fucking slave gladiator, I don't know how he's experienced every other royal dynasty on the planet to know that the Riku one is the only peaceful, true understanding of the meaning of peace. Even over Vivi, the Cobra family, whatever, dude, but he's saying it, which would suggest to me that the idealized version of Dressrosa before Doflamingo took over is what the end of the One Piece world is going to look like, including some sort of reparations for those who were affected, because that's what they're doing for the Tantaras. And basically all of that is what Kiros is including here in his, this is the ideal way for a king to be for a country. But then in the very next chapter, Homeboy Pika says, hey, a country is bound together by military might. One who cannot crush his foes is not fit to be a king. And Riku even agrees with that. So while he might have had the ultimate peaceful ideals, he couldn't defend them because he was too weak. So what's the solution? It's going to be Homeboy Luffy, right? If he's the all-powerful strongest guy at the end of the story, as every main character tends to be. And I think we talked about this very recently. Maybe Luffy's just like patrolling the whole world to keep everything peaceful and nice, and he has the power to do what Riku could not on a global scale, perhaps.
Yeah, when it's put together this way, it really goes to show that, maybe Monkey D. Luffy really exhibits some George Washington qualities, He's the man who, he's believing and moving forward and doing what it takes to, you know, have his men be as in a secured, peaceful, but stable and well-meaning world as possible. But then again, not to sound like a heckin' wokerino, but at the same time, they were having to mow down them forests and push out forward to get some land to to make this work and to kind of continue to present a motive and a purpose with manifest destiny and so on as time went on. And maybe that was satisfied in those times for him by having America be a free nation at that time as well as anything. I guess I'm kind of rambling and something gets irrelevant, but it's
Well,
an
I'll make
idea
it
though.
relevant. Imagine
Yeah,
if George Washington, with his great virtues and saying, "Oh no, I'm not going to become the king. 2 terms is enough. We don't need any more of that." Imagine if his good friend Trafalgar Law had a magic power to give him eternal life, and George Washington would still be alive today. And his guidance over the nation could prevent some of the bullshit that perhaps has happened in the last 250 years. And
that's right.
and I think Luffy might end up just living forever thanks to Law as a force of good and in happiness for the entire One Piece world. Some people want Luffy to die at the end. Nice try. He's literally going to live forever, adventuring and having fun. Get fucked. You're not getting your tragic ending in One Piece. It's going to be as happy of an ending as humanly fucking possible. Because it's romance dawn, motherfucker. Do you know what these words mean? He's not writing tragedy dawn. God damn it.
That's true. I mean, and I feel for Luffy because he is still a young man, and to be, to have that weight on his shoulders to, but it's still out in the distance. He's still got a lot of fighting to do to become the king of the pirates. And I think that that's going to give him everything he needs right now to keep pushing forward to greater and greater heights. If he should become the all-powerful king of the pirates with immortality and be tasked with policing the world for all history, I should at
Well,
least hope
basically,
that.
instead of policing the world, I think instead he will be friends with almost everybody. And you know what happens if you fuck with one of Luffy's friends? So he's not like the world police. He's protecting his friends. He just happens to have a fucking lot of them.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't want to get too meta here, but also it makes me think, we already had Law at a point was ready to say, okay, now thanks for being my ally, Luffy. Now, fuck you. I'm going to go do my thing there. I had planned to do. I think it could be a lot on his shoulders, but what I feel like is, in this possible eventual future where this is happening, and of course, he'd have Law. If Law is willing to grant him that power, he would have, that bridge would have been rebuilt and fortified to the utmost.
You don't think that the
That
bridge
maybe his
was fixed
reputation.
in this very volume when Doflamingo's about to crush La to death and Luffy blocks Dofi's foot with his foot? And it's one of the most badass panels ever. You don't think La like loves Luffy at this point? He just
Yeah, I think he
saved him.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd say just that in this eventual possible future, that Luffy's reputation would precede him to such a degree, that it would be like if I, was going whatever crazy, and all of a sudden I just walked into a an army base or a police station and started making threats or whatever. I know they're going to smoke me right away. Maybe that's what Luffy's adversaries, they think that they're going to be able to overthrow. Maybe his reputation would precede himself to such a degree that they would find that to be an unsavory idea in any capacity to try and overthrow him for their own gain. So yeah, I'm hashtag effing with it as an eventual future because that's how you would achieve One Piece. If we're talking peace, like peacefulness, an overbearing immortal ruler, maybe some kind of god, you might say. It is what it is.
And you know what? If the whole point of a show like this is to make predictions and then look like a super genius in 5 years when your prediction's right, I honestly have not seen too many people give a prediction like this, that Luffy lives forever and continues to explore and save the world. I've seen a lot saying that he dies. So this might be not unique territory, but maybe a little different than what Mr. Morge is fucking putting in your sub feed this week. We're spoiling the ending of One Piece pretty much. I'm that confident. Hey, what do you think of this SBS question? Otis says the antonym of adventure is mother.
Uh-oh.
This heckin' misogyniner Reno here, Aggie?
Well, this kind of has some relevance. I'm not saying I'm a father, okay?
Not yet. But by the time this podcast is over, very well could be, because, I mean, this podcast is going to last another 15 years, to be honest. One Piece is not close to being done.
That is very true. Yeah, I've been overall, other than I have wine with, dinner a couple times a week when I have my pasta dishes that I'm making. I got this one now. It's like, I'm not going to get into it. I like to ramble. And then
what does this have to do with mother?
Well, no, because I'm kind of, in the way that adventure is the antonym to mother, I almost feel like also just maybe as a parent in general, or like assuming a more parenting kind of role, because I feel like my adventurous spirit is maybe taking a turn. Like I said, I'm not a parent at this moment, but I've reached a point in my life where perhaps I'm making more preparations than I ever have to those ends. And it's kind of like a ship. My ship is turning a little bit for me. It used to be Party Island every day, drinking 12 packs of the finest alcohol creations every day. And now I'm, hanging up French paintings and, washing my dishes. And I mean, not that I didn't do that already, but I have nicer dishes, not paper plates, more clean, I'm more well presented, all these different things. And I'm kind of, I'm seeing this, I never wanted to consider myself a man child. I found myself more as a revolutionary freedom fighter for the rights of all gamers and so
That's
on and
right.
so forth. But I might be crossing a Rubicon of my own, as my hero George Washington also once did, where my adventure might be turning into more of a scheduled routine without too much crazy living. And so it's an interesting thing. I've been kind of contending with it recently. So this is a welcome sort of idea here that's presented in this as that. But I think mothering more so, certainly, but I think also to a degree fathering or being a parent in general, to where you have to provide that stability and predictability, and you can't be, let's say for instance, going live threatening government officials with violence and drinking a gallon of liquor a day. So I
In
feel
case
it, Oda.
if any women are listening to this podcast and they need a metaphor to understand what Aggie is saying, basically he's done riding the cock carousel and is ready to settle down with a nice guy. But instead of
Something like
cocks,
that,
it's bottles of Elvis whiskey.
That's true.
The whiskey carousel.
I'm writing that down as a new song title. Thank you for that. Whiskey Carousel. I think that's a new one.
That's a great speech to give after you showed off your cocktail at 1 p.m. today in the podcast.
It's true. I mean, listen, my great uncle, he had 1 p.m. cocktails until they put him in prison, and he had to go out into that program. And he raised a great family. So, I think there's levels to it. But, responsibility and maturity are bearing down on my middle-aged shoulders in a way that they haven't in a while. So this question made me do a think. It made me, it provoked my mind, because I've been thinking these things. So, yes, indeed.
What did you think of our Zoro adventure chapters where I think we see a side of Zoro, or perhaps a writing style we very rarely, if ever, get to see, where Zoro goes through like his plan of action and he goes through like 6 or 7, 7 or 8 is what I meant to say, like bad ideas, and then he comes up with, oh, if I just defeat him in midair, he can't escape into more stones. And he has Orlumbus throw him across the fucking map, and then he spends about 2 minutes hovering, I guess, every time he slashes, that pushes him back up in the air. I don't know, but what's your take on all of the Zoro of this?
Well, maybe it's just me, but I felt like in the volume, this was possibly the greatest combat that there is. You know, I really appreciated what Kiros did and his resilience, of course, but the way that Zoro, yeah, like you said, this is so operating at such a incredible level that I don't know if we've really seen anything quite like it, where he is tasked with fighting. Um, well, I want to call him Pokey, but or no Pika. I'm sorry. Yeah, it makes sense. That's right. Okay. So he's fighting Pika, this massive stone man, and he knows that he can just if you cut him up, it doesn't matter as long as he still is existing within the stone. He can just transfer himself to any new stone over and over again. So he kind of hits him with a real slice and dice, where he is calculating. He's essentially starting from the midsection for the severing, and he's working his way up to you know calculate what the most likely portion that remains,
And
keeping
well,
in
he's like
the
he's
Pika.
watching which rock remains animated, like you can see it in his eyes and stuff. So,
Right.
and eventually he has nowhere else to hide, and I don't know why he can't just like go pebble size, because eventually Pika just comes out in his like human form to fight. I feel like that was a big mistake, because that's when you're vulnerable to Zoro.
Well, that's true, but I mean, like I said, he starts with the half and then halves that, and then he's like sushiifying up from the, and it must be like just so instantaneous. Like it's really just like, so I mean, if he's going at that kind of speed, I could see where, okay, shit, like incoming. Let me try and see if I could, get. I don't want to be caught on the off foot. Let me try and lead into it so we could go one on one, but when Zoro's in this mode, I mean, just at this incredible operating capacity. And honestly, what I liked almost even as much is that uh, our hero, the One Punch King from the Coliseum, whose name I don't immediately remember, but I remember that he just has to charge. He's like on some hyper beam stuff from Pokemon. He's got to
Hmm.
charge it up all day and then fire it off once and then calm down. But he has it just right for when all of these unnecessary pieces of rubble are all coming to the ground and threatening everybody, that he's able to his the force of his punch knocks it all away. I mean, it's just incredible. It's just fantastic.
Is
Everything here. I mean, as much as I'm not trying to be denigrating Luffy's capabilities here, but something about just the precision and the all the moving parts here, the quick thinking that Zoro is portraying, and then the also the cooperation with. That's why I hope coming into the volume here that we'll continue incorporating these other gladiators and Coliseum participants and other Straw Hats working their way into be a component of Doflamingo's overall and full defeat. And of course, a lot of them had said as much that they wanted to have some role to play in his defeat, his downfall, his capture, whatever the case might be. So I think we get a taste of what I hope we'll continue seeing here with this cooperation, because that really just it lands very very pleasantly for me as a reader, like very very satisfying. And I feel like as much as the last few chapters here do provide that as well. Once we get into the Luffy and Doflamingo combat, we're getting a lot of trading of blows that is more so the focus, with a little bit of that side commentary from these involved parties, kind of setting themselves up on the perimeter of the combat. And then if this is a uh, a blow that ends the volume here, that kind of incapacitates Doflamingo, then they're there somewhat at the ready, or at least on the sideline, so to speak, to involve themselves. So I thought that was all very, very nice. Yeah.
to have Elizabello's King Punch that is reported strong enough to defeat even a Yonko, to have that used to just stop the debris from crushing King Riku and all the citizens. I wonder if is that a sign that they have incredible faith in Luffy to take care of Doflamingo? Like, shouldn't he be saving this to stop the guy who has the birdcage that's going to kill them all?
I think at the point this is happening, I would say yes. Um, I think it's a wise uh, wager to make for sure. And I would say also from Elisabella's position, I just feel like Doflamingo had if he was the one that was tasked with delivering this kind of blow that could maybe bring Doflamingo to the same condition that he ends the volume in, I feel like he would have too many tricks up his sleeve to try and prevent something like that because it's such a very front loaded, obvious single point strike as compared to like with Luffy in Gear 4 where he's got his arm going like doing all kinds of zigzags and crazy stuff. He's flying around. A lot more spontaneous, unpredictable, um, fast, multi-angle, multifaceted origin points from his attacks versus just kind of standing there and throwing a punch. I feel like Doflamingo would have something to try and evade or nullify that. So I think he made the right choice in his decision there for sure.
Yeah, Oda would probably have a marionette version of Dofi get hit by the King Punch, and then the real one just stabs Elisabello in the back or something.
For sure, yeah.
Oh, we don't give enough respect to Law because usually in these action scenes it just leads to Luffy doing some cool shit instead. But Law, he had a good one, an endurance feat. Yeah, he had a room so big nobody even knew they were in it, and he said that it's going to cost him some of his lifespan. So much like Gear 2 Luffy's burning the candle at both ends to win this fight here. And it doesn't even really, I mean, it pays off a little bit. They do the switcheroo attack again, but Dofi just repairs himself.
Speaking of people that might not get their full appreciation, well, we talked last time about how, essentially Bellamy had, in Doflamingo's eyes, failed him, but he had resigned and sworn himself to be a Doflamingo subject no matter what, no matter what it was going to do to him. And well,
Well,
as he's not.
Bellamy's kind of like Tim Pool. He's out there saying, "No, bootlicker, I am the boot. That boot is me. I voted for that boot." That's Bellamy.
So true. Speaking of, this is also kind of real, but I started watching Boston Legal recently, and I think he's only in for a few episodes. But there's a guy at the beginning of the series named Edwin Poole, who bears a striking resemblance. This is 2004, mind you. Bears a striking resemblance, very bald and very schizophrenic, and
He thinks he is the boot.
he's also in the first episode where William Shatner's character says that in order to blow off a steam, one of the people should. There's a man who thinks his wife, I think, is unfaithful, and he goes, "Listen, man, I'll tell you how to blow off some steam. You go down to Florida, just go find a Chad and punch him."
A
Which I guess I don't know,
Chad?
he meant like a surfer, but yeah, there's a clip. I've been meaning to clip. I've been clipping quotes from Boston Legal and Sex in the City for memeing. There's some great shit in there for good memeing purposes. I just don't know how I'm going to introduce those to like my Twitter followers without seeming to be, at least metrosexual. Because like, why is a man watching multiple seasons of like Sex in the City to find a meme? I'm just doing it. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is.
If
Looking
it was
back at
on
the 90s,
HBO, it's got to be at least a 6 out of 10, right? They weren't just putting dog shit content out there. Even if it is meant for women, it's got to be entertaining and funny.
I think it's certainly better than what's being produced these days, and I stand by that for sure.
Yeah. Other than
But
maybe
yeah.
Pluribus that everybody's pissed we never finished reviewing. Oops.
Yeah, one of these
Oops.
days.
Hey, we liked it. What more is there to say? You know what? I'll spend 2.5 hours on every single volume of One Piece, but Pluribus, we can't even be bothered for 40 minutes. Are you kidding me? There's nothing to say about that fine piece of art. But we will eventually.
Everyone's in agreement.
What were you saying 3 minutes ago before I cut you off? I think we were saying something.
Well, in the previous volume, Bellamy.
Oh yeah,
is
Bellamy.
Bellamy does not get the movie 4 treatment. If you don't know what that means, make sure to become a paid member. Watch the movie 4 review. But basically, in movie 4, there's a man who Luffy's also fighting. He doesn't really aim to take out of the picture. He finds a way to kind of incapacitate him. Bellamy, maybe not so much. He's kind of missing teeth and covered in blood, and I think really there was no other way about it. because if he's being controlled by powers greater than his own self, it is what it is. He's got to do what he's got to do.
Were you satisfied that it was the
Uh,
identical defeat from Mocktown, where he just throws one punch to bash him into the ground? It was identical.
that was funny, and it's probably also sensible considering their power. I don't know. It's everything works here for the pacing. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, he could have maybe spent some of that time. But I guess, as a man who often spends time doing nothing constructive and basically just doing whatever I want, regardless of how it benefits or detriments my life, I guess I could understand where Bellamy's coming from here. Like, yeah, I'm probably good enough now. I mean, listen, I've been out here doing my thing, and then just get one-shotted, yeah.
Just to get
But
slightly meta for the folks at home, volume 76, I think, is when we're introduced really to Luffy and Bellamy down on their lower level having their fight. And then Eggy, he accidentally skips volume 77, goes to volume 78, and reads really the logical next scene and conclusion of that fight. So I imagine Eggy, when he finds out he missed a volume, he's got to be thinking, what the fuck were Luffy and Bellamy doing for an entire volume? There were months and months of publish and release of Luffy versus Bellamy. The folks at home waiting week to week for new chapters had to spend months waiting for Luffy to punch Bellamy one fucking time. Jesus, he spent more time with Bellamy than he does fighting Dofy.
I might be wrong here, but I feel like for a lot of volumes, going from one to the other, or going from one and skipping one to the other, would be a little more obvious.
It's because this is so epic that there's so many characters that were relevant for 77 that their stories are then told, and then 78 can move on. So it makes sense for an epic scope of a story that you could skip a whole volume and feel like it makes kind of mostly sense, but
Mm-hmm. And so from there, we're talking about Doflamingo's subjects. The only one remaining after the Bellamy attack is, well, we talked, or you mentioned before about how I'm sorry, Law speaks about how he had this massive room that covered so far that the boundaries of it could not even be seen, and as such, Law is able to pop his sword wielding hand off and flip it up to attack Trebol, who is at this time the only remaining captain or family member, rather, of the Doflamingo family. It turns out that he was actually just a Lanklet the whole time, so people were trying to swing at his goo, thinking he's this big, large figure. It was not the case. He's just a scrawny man in underwear and not even wearing a shirt. And so by going right up his middle, that is how Law is able to hit him with a satisfying and a sword strike to that regard.
and I think this volume gives us a suggested level of depth for Trebol, where he's the true dark puppet master, even above Dofi, where he had this crew of Virgo and Diamante, like all the big powerhouses of the crew, and they found Dofi as a child and realized his potential and all the things he could do with his position in life as a former celestial dragon, and they really truly take advantage of him, and nature versus nurture, however you want to put it. Maybe he had darkness inside him all along, but having Trebol as your mentor after all the trauma of your childhood, he certainly crafted him into thinking he's this god amongst men who deserves so much more. And I like that the way Law saves them, and when Luffy gets stuck in the stickiness, is that he insults Trebol and says, "Oh, you're just another puppet. You're an idiot loser." And it really hits him deep, because this has been his operation from the beginning. Like, we're kind of just now realizing that even Dofi, he's like just the muscle behind this weird freaky guy who's the brains.
Kind of like this guy, my cultural parallel here. I think the guy called himself like Nokia or something like that. He was a rapper who was never successful, and he happened to find this artist who was later known as Yeet. and Yeet ended up basically coming up under this guy, and like he presented him to the world, became like a platinum selling artist. He's not super relevant now. He kind of had like a from like 21 to 23 was like a big run for this artist Yeet, but instead of being able to kind of steer that ship, he got basically completely overshadowed and wasn't able to run this the way that it needed to be ran. So his artist ended up moving on to like a major record label, and this guy just kind of went online and just seethed about it and was like, oh, well, it wouldn't be anything. And, like basically A-logging him, trolling him as like this nobody loser while the guy that he introduced to the world became a massive, famous, rich man.
Is that what we're
So
gonna
it
do
happens like
when
that.
Heartsea takes off and becomes rich and famous? Like, you'd be nothing without us, Heartsea. We discovered you. We put you on the map. All those podcasts. You're gonna be
Well,
a Heartsea
I
A-log
mean,
one day.
to where I've been at to this point in my life, it's happened to me a couple of times, and I just more look at it as like a proud, like old. I'm like Master Roshi watching Goku do his thing. Basically, that's how I see it. If you see the bout, like, oh, what should have been mine, it'll get you nowhere. But I think Tree Ball, it's an idea, like because obviously Doflamingo, he did have that innate potential, and I think that for better or worse, the kind of guidance that he was being presented by people like Trebol in this initial grouping gave him all of the energy and the guidance that he needed to maximize his potential that he had uh,
And
at his baseline. So.
this is I think a branching or an emerging archetype we should be keeping track of because I don't think it's a spoiler to say two upcoming Yonko that we're going to be introduced to perhaps also had a similar dark, shadowy mentor figure who lurks behind them. So I wonder what Oda's trying to say and if this will be relevant to the final bosses of One Piece, if it'll be a similar structure.
I think it does make sense because we started out this volume talking about the poneglyph and that those things from the past. Certainly, there had to have been some guidance passed down to those leaders of today from eras that we might not even be familiar with. And so, I think if you have somebody who has the capabilities, you can only kind of reach sort of a natural capping. I feel like on some of these abilities, whether that's with the devil fruit or physical or some of this natural tactical ability, combat, whatever it might be. I think that the guidance begins to play a larger role in shaping those abilities from here on out. Because otherwise, unless you're having when you have things like Blackbeard's devil fruit or Law's devil fruit, even what Doflamingo is able to do here, you kind of reach almost like a peak of ability. Like, oh, I can do the most powerful attacks, and I can recreate myself, and I could seal your devil fruit powers, and I could, control this entire island with my giant globe over the top of it or whatever. It just becomes to be a bit, I think, where there's diminishing returns. If everybody has such incredible power, you need something else in that equation to make it something more.
Anything else from the text of this volume? Or should we move on to maybe another question for Virgin?
I think we've probably covered everything pretty well, so I
I
could
think
get down with
so.
another virgin question.
I did like that Law, I think, did an exact replay of a Buggy the Clown attack on Zoro when his detached arm stabbed Dofi in the back.
That's right.
And I feel like there's got to be some connection between Law and Buggy, because then there's like again, not to spoil, but there's a moment where Law has he's reading about Buggy in the newspaper and he seems impressed by him. So I wonder if this is very intentional that he has a similar attack and then he's thinking about him later.
I do remember that now that you mention it, yeah.
And I love Law and Buggy and Usopp, which is why I love Dressrosa. How do you feel about Dressrosa currently, Aggie? Is this because it's got to be nearing the end now, 80 some chapters in? Definitely
Well,
the longest arc we have read so far.
I think it is probably the most epic. I don't know. I really enjoyed yeah, Eni's lobby for the anti-government sentiment. I really enjoyed Skypiea for the fantastical sentiment, but I think so much as something with a lot of weight that impacts a lot of lives. I know Alabasta was up there also. I think that was still pretty high up on my ranking list, but I think that this is going to supersede that as well, just because that goes from, you know, there was a lot of people involved and affected in Alabasta, but I feel like just the length and the depth here, the components involved, the betrayal, the suspense, the tension, the anxiety. I think there's a lot more going on here overall in this particular arc. In this, so that's I think it's probably shaping up to be my top as it stands.
Wow, are people going to be pissed if we both have Dressrosa as the number one One Piece arc? And I kind of had a revelation earlier today. I was thinking about it, and
Uh,
uh, One Piece, Eggy, as far as we're concerned, is literally never bad ever again.
oh
N-
shit.
Like I realize Fishman Island and Punk Hazard is like that's the last low point, and then everything else is like either S tier or high A. And I'm very confident in saying that. Like One Piece is just gonna be a thrill ride from now on. I love the rest of the arcs so much.
And I've loved almost every single thing that's ever existed up to this point, so that just sounds even better to me.
Yeah, the fact that we have Dressrosa as the best, and I'm saying, yeah, it stays this good, if not better. I think post time skip is severely underrated just because it starts off with 100 chapters of bumpy terrain, perhaps. Okay, questions for Virgin. Bimbo Alabama wants to know, hey, kind of relevant. What would you say was the most disappointing or underwhelming arc?
Uh, hmm. I guess really, all of the I forget exactly specifically right now, but I think like the ones that are only that because they were minimal, and I need something that's a little more. That's a big part of where I end up placing things is just the extent. Like I need to be able to last long enough to really get some immersion. So I think like Logtown and Mocktown. I don't know if those were their own, but I remember Logtown. I'm just trying to think off what was in my uh, in my list before of ranking of arcs. So I should probably see if I could go check that out. Right now, it's not too far up in my chat log here. But just generally speaking, though, Reverse Mountain and Logtown are the top or the bottom of mine rather. Whiskey Peak, like I like what happened in Whiskey Peak. The involvement of what was going on there was fun, but overall for an arc, those were just minuscule. They needed more to really reach that for me, and even for me with Romance on or Long Ring being a low ranking arc for me, I enjoyed that quite a bit. I think often about the games that were going on there. I reference those in my day to day life. Those were fine and fun and a good time, but arc speaking wise, the Davy back games were more minimal. Whiskey Peak, the being tricked into eating the buffet, so literal me behavior, but overall more minimal compared to grander, more expansive things. So I guess probably it is pretty tough. I think with Logtown being my lowest rated on the last copy of my rating list I have here, which was a few months ago, but I think that does still stand there because it's minuscule and it's not particularly interesting either. You need something, and even like I don't take so much to combat or action as like massive. I need the writing to be engaging and to bring me into it with a little bit of emotion, a little bit of relatability. That's what makes a good arc to me. And when you're low on those, just higher on spontaneous combat and low on overall depth and length, those are what's going to give me a less of an interest in the particular arc.
I don't want to copy you too much, but my answer is also Reverse Mountain, only because the opening 100 chapters of the story is really building up the Grand Line as being a death trap and some horror show, and it's going to be the most intense, crazy shit. And then we just spend tens of chapters hanging out with a whale and getting drunk at a bar on Whiskey Peak. Whiskey Peak does pick up once the Baroque Works agents with their devil fruit powers show up because the story desperately needed a variety of devil fruit enemies. We hadn't really had that yet. So I would say the first half of Whiskey Peak and goddamn Reverse Mountain did not. If the question is specifically underwhelming, I was certainly underwhelmed after being hyped up on the Grand Line. But it picks up. Oda knows what he's doing. It's just I thought it was going to be crazy right away, and
Yeah,
maybe a giant whale's not crazy enough for me.
I'll say one more thing too with Logtown being my lowest, and if we're talking underwhelming specifically as well. Yeah, I think it had a lot more that it could have done. I don't know if it would have even been greater for this story for to get us to get deep in the intricate workings of Logtown, but it doesn't in any case. So I could also add that being underwhelming as well. Because I like like, oh, there's a merchant, and maybe we're talking to the sword merchant. Maybe he needs a certain item, and maybe we could go run off to the other edge of the island and talk to there's more that could have been there that wasn't, and it was fine, I think, overall, but
It gave us
it could have been
Buggy
more.
and Smoker.
Yeah.
So if
You know,
anything, we just wanted more.
Dragon could have let himself be a little more known. We got a little taste of what that meant to be, but yeah. So I think my points continue to stand.
Well, Eggy, it's all fresh content from here on out. You don't have to reread any volumes ever again, hopefully. What are you hoping to see in volume 79?
Well, I'm going to lock on to something I said earlier. I think that Doflamingo seems very difficult to just beat into a pulp with his abilities. So I think where he's at now, perhaps an incapacitation, a convalescing of Luffy with his fellow Straw Hats, some of these top Coliseum participants all kind of coming around to lock in, or maybe it will just be a final grand blow that I think an incapacitation is at least certainly on the horizon here for Doflamingo to help begin the relief of his tyranny. But if there's a big like spirit bomb moment where everybody's kind of coming together to assist, uh, I think I could stand on that too. Maybe it's not so likely since they've already sort of established, oh, everybody stand back, stand by, but I want that to be true, so I'm going to stand on that. Yeah, everybody's going to come together. Luffy's going to, lead the charge here for the final grand incapacitation of Doflamingo, the saving of Gorilla, Alligator, and all the grandmas who are tripping over their own feet. If not now, then when? And where are we going from? I guess we got to go to Ido is the Emperor of the Beasts, right?
He's the one who will be most angry that the Tantaras just exploded their slave factory.
I don't think we're going to get a Kuma moment where it's going to be so instantaneous, but I think that.
Oh man, that would yeah. They're all wiped out and Dressrosa's shattered to pieces, and then fucking Kaido pulls up, "You motherfuckers!" That'd be good. I hope that happens.
I feel more likely if we're going to be a little more diplomatic, in the incapacitation, and moving on towards a recovery. I think there's going to be some time for that, and then we're going to be leading with maybe by the end of the next volume, we'll be leading with just essences and elements and traces of moving in that direction, since that was such a big component here. It's possible the whole next volume could be defeat and then just the recovery, but then maybe at least in 70, or I guess that'd be volume 80 at that point. And maybe that's a good time to kind of move on to the next part too. But at the very least, I see Doflamingo's defeat and some recovery efforts in the next volume is what I predict.
It's kind of understated, but there are a handful of panels suggesting Jesus Burgess from the Blackbeard Pirates is still up to no good here. Do you have any ideas what might happen to him in this arc?
I think he could be perhaps a good conduit to be soaking in what's going on here, and then so if we want to talk, like how I mentioned about a Kuma-esque activity with when we had Moria getting defeated, and then Kuma pops up right away to handle business, perhaps we could have something along those lines where Jesus Burgess could relate to the Blackbeard Pirates. Oh, all this just went down. This is vulnerable territory right now. The leader's been deposed. Those who are still here are quite battered and low energy, so maybe this is a good time for our seizing. And if that were the case, I could see then a continuation in those ends, because I don't see why that would be anything but appealing for Blackbeard to make a move at that point, because why not? That seems like the best time to do it. And, this awakened string fruit, maybe he could pull up and eat some of that and take that
Hell
power in with
yeah.
his abilities. So,
If from now on,
uh,
every time Luffy beats a big boss, Blackbeard absorbs his power, that'd be fucked. Then my earlier prediction from Thriller Bark might be necessary, where Luffy eventually can utilize every devil fruit like he did when he had the 100 shadows. I'm paying attention, Oda. I know what you're doing. The fucking Zatch Bell shit's happening, ain't it?
okay, well, in those, if at the very least, I'll say Doflamingo's going down, volume 79. To the victor go the spoils, I guess, is what we'll have to say. So you better go handle Jesus Burgess before it's all over, Luffy. Go handle him. Go do it. You got all your captains, all your gladiators. They're ready to go. Let's do it.
Yeah, somebody's gotta. Eggy, anything you want to plug this week?
I've still been big on that Zeter at 2 Egg White. That's my base. I'm building it up. Make sure to go smash that follow button. You get all the other information about me right there, so you might as well.
Episode 3 of our show, Vincent's Atheist Reviews, will be up on February 2nd, I believe, if that's a Monday. So go watch that. It's already up for members of that channel, but since I don't usually post on the main channel, surprise, surprise, not very many members compared to these other channels, but some
right.
people have already seen it. So by the time this is public, you can go watch the Scientology Scam episode. Rusty Cage might make an appearance. Spoiler alert.
That's right. You better go upvote it. The more upvotes you give to that video, the more likelihood that Rusty Cage materializes a few minutes in.
Well, it might be
Several minutes.
6 or 7 minutes in. I hope they couldn't hear that. And that's all my plugs. Wow, I'm so excited for really the rest of One Piece, Eggy. I'm legitimate. Like, it never gets bad, ever. I don't even know if there's going to be like a low point in a volume. It's just Kino. It's so Kino.
Put it right into my veins. I'm ready. Woo!
One Piece, people.